If you're an empty nest single parent, ages roughly 45 and over, and now that your kids are moved out of the house and you're curious about what a life abroad would be like, then stick around, because in this video I'm going to go through all of that. So this is my story. In May of last year, mid-May, I hugged my son goodbye at 2 o'clock in the morning in Tucson and hopped into an Uber on the way to Tucson Airport for a one-way flight to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And I stayed there for a week and a half. And then after that, I boarded a bus for Guadalajara. And that was my number one goal, to live and work in Guadalajara as an English teacher, while also working on this YouTube channel and my personal brand. And so what I want to do in this video is talk about my experience, things I've learned, things that caught me off guard, and my best advice for someone like you who's considering taking the leap. So when I arrived in Guadalajara, I had a couple of business coaches that were helping me with my YouTube channel and my personal brand. And after about a month, I realized I don't see a clear path forward quite yet, exactly how I'm going to do what I want to do to help people build a plan to relocate outside of the US, to live abroad. So I pivoted back to my original goal of English teaching. I started looking for an English teaching job online, and pretty quickly I realized that it wasn't going to work. I tried about a dozen different online platforms and I kept on striking out. It seems to me that the English teaching market is really saturated right now, and so there's a lot of teachers. So after that, I thought, okay, let's try another plan. I looked into physical brick and mortar language schools, mostly the kind of schools that cater to working adults, those types of places. I'm certified to teach business English, and of course I hold a regular TEFL certificate. That's teaching English as a foreign language, 140-hour program. So I started looking offline, going to visit English schools in person, going there in person with my credentials and all that, and I kept hitting more dead ends. A lot of schools just didn't have any openings at the time. And I did manage to interview with 3 different schools, and well, I kept hitting the same roadblock. They were wanting to know if I was a resident of Mexico, and I said, no, all I have is a tourist visa. I had wanted to get residency in Mexico, but I don't qualify. I don't have enough income or savings to meet the requirements. And so I did the next best thing, and I was just made the leap, moved down there as a tourist, and I was given 180 days to make it happen. And unfortunately, the schools I visited, 3 interviews, and they all said the same thing: without residency, we can't hire you. I asked, do you offer visa sponsorship? And they said no. So that was a bummer. And so right before my 180 days was up, oh, one more thing. I actually tried starting a business based upon my English teaching credentials, offering English consulting to businesses, but same problem. Without legal residency, you can't get a work permit, and without a work permit, you can't get a tax ID number and invoice Mexican businesses locally. That was not an option either. So couldn't get a job, couldn't start a business. And so right before my 180 days in the country were over, I left Mexico, went from Guadalajara to Cancun, and then I took the Tren Maya down to Chetumal, and then stayed at the border of Mexico and Belize, and then crossed into Belize on November 1st. So I had been in Mexico just almost 180 days, crossed into Belize, and then stayed in San Ignacio, Belize for 4 weeks. And the purpose of that was to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? If Mexico's not an option, what can I do next? And also, another interesting thing happened. Over the summer, I found out the U.S. Patent Office had lifted its hiring freeze and was hiring patent examiners again. For some additional context, about a year ago, I had lost my job in Arizona. I was working as a patent examiner for a private company based in Arizona. DOGE and the tariff trade war, that kind of killed my job. And then I looked into working for the U.S. Patent Office directly, and I saw the job I had my eyes on disappeared literally overnight. That was gone because of the hiring freeze. And so I thought, okay, and that's why I moved to Mexico. I thought, well, my career in the United States is dead. I'm going to go to Mexico. I remember telling my son, I'm going to go to Mexico where I know I can get a job. Well, found out I was wrong about that. But, you know, expect the unexpected. Life will always throw you a curveball, and nothing is guaranteed. That's probably the biggest lesson I've learned in this 8.5-month journey. So I'm in Belize in November, waiting to hear back from the patent office on my status and radio silence. And also in the second half of November, right around the time I was expecting to get an email or a call regarding my acceptance status, I started getting cold feet. I remember asking myself, well, what's going to make me happier? Moving to Alexandria, Virginia to take a high-paying job that would force me to put my dreams of moving abroad on hold for at least 2 years, maybe 3. I mean, the money would be good. I would be able to pay off my back taxes. But yeah, all the work I've done on this channel, and I would have to put all that on hold and start from scratch down the road. So I asked myself, what's going to make me happier? Doing the crazy thing, doing the brave thing, the bold thing, moving to the literal other side of this planet to pursue a job there. And so I chose that path. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. You're only on this earth for a limited period of time. And nothing's guaranteed. Even if I did say yes to the government job, there's still a public trust investigation that I would have to undergo. And I would have to disclose the fact that I have 2 bankruptcies and now a federal tax lien. So yeah, those would be definitely red flags that I would have to explain, and there would be definitely less than a 100% chance of being hired. So going back to my story, I was in Belize and I said to myself, okay, Southeast Asia, and I narrowed it down to Vietnam. Thailand was also on my list, as well as Taiwan and a few other countries, but Vietnam won out. So I started going through the long process of getting all my papers legalized to use in Vietnam. Had to get an FBI background check done, had to get my college degree reissued, I had to send my one and only original teaching certificate to a vendor in Mexico to get it legalized for Vietnam. That's still going on. So I had to manage the 3 different documents, getting them prepared to teach in Vietnam. I had to manage this process from Belize, and then at the end of November, I moved to Guatemala. I was in Antigua, Guatemala for almost 3 weeks, and then 6 weeks in Guatemala City. And keeping an eye on my papers, making sure they're getting their stamps and seals and all that stuff. It was not easy. I had to learn all this stuff on my own. The whole process, and Google and AI were my best tools. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, those all were very helpful in helping me figure out, okay, what do I need to do and who do I need to hire to do it? Because I'm not in the United States, I wasn't in Mexico anymore, so I had to manage this whole thing remotely. And so in addition to doing a lot of sightseeing in Belize and then Guatemala, I'm on my laptop for hours a day managing this paperwork. So I left Belize at the end of November, took a 16-hour bus ride to Antigua, spent, yeah, as I said, 3 weeks in Antigua, followed by another 6 weeks in Guatemala City, getting ready to move to Vietnam. And I still didn't hear anything back from the patent office. November was total radio silence. December, not a peep. And at that point I thought, well, they probably put the hiring on hold, or maybe I wasn't selected or something like that. But I had already made other plans and mentally moved on. It wasn't until the 3rd week of January that I got an email out of the blue from the patent office asking me to supply references. And I thought, where have you guys been? What is this all about? So I replied saying that I'm exploring teaching opportunities abroad. Thank you for considering me, but I have to respectfully withdraw from consideration. I declined the job offer. So now I'm really committed to this Vietnam path. The salary that they offered me was almost $94,000 a year. So part of me feels like crap for turning down that kind of money, but I have my reasons for doing this. For one, safety in the United States. It's hard to feel safe in this country with all the shenanigans that our federal government is putting on. All the ICE and CBP activity in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've got a friend who lives there who I'm really worried about, worried for his safety. And this is happening nationwide now. It can be in any city, in any state. So there's that I have to deal with, would have to deal with if I stuck around. I looked on Reddit forums. After my second interview, I got curious. I thought, oh yeah, Reddit. I have an account on Reddit. I rarely ever use it, so I looked up patent examiner forums and the USPTO forums, and there's a really big decrease in morale. The morale in the patent office is way down. Examiners are treated like crap. Unreasonable production targets. Just it's bad in general out there. I thought to myself, well, that sounds like a toxic work environment. I don't want any part of that. And I thought, well, yeah, maybe that's why they're offering so much money. Maybe they're desperate, because a year ago, when the new administration took office, there was like a mass exodus of people. A lot of people left that agency. And now they're trying to replace all the people who are gone, who are forced resignations, forced early retirements, furloughs. There was a huge reduction in force in the federal government. And now I'm thinking that the patent office is scrambling to get people back or hire new people to replace the people who got kicked out or left on their own accord. And one way of doing that is having really high starting salaries. Again, the money would have been great. It would have been a way to pay off my back taxes, but with my financial background, my red flags, yeah, they might not want to extend the offer after all. It could have been rescinded. But if I had burned the Vietnam bridge and decided, no, I'm going to work for the patent office, and then the public trust investigation, let's say they did decide to rescind the job offer, then I would have been really screwed. I would have screwed myself out of 2 opportunities. So I'm taking the calculated risk and going the Vietnam way, because I've got a story that's worth writing about. So what now? I'm obviously not abroad. I'm no longer in Guatemala. I'm in Mesa, Arizona. This is my mom's mobile home park. I'm staying here for about a week and a half. I haven't seen my mom in almost a year, so it's nice to be with her again. And also, hotels are really expensive in the United States. I'm getting sticker shock with everything. The food is exorbitantly priced. Lodging is through the roof, especially now. It's February. This is Arizona peak snowbird season, so lodging is in demand, hence the higher price. I got used to paying $10 to $20 a night living in hostels in Latin America. Here, good luck getting a hotel room for less than $60 or $70 a night. Even that's kind of cheap. So I had told my mom, yeah, can I stay with you for a little while, because the hotels are just too dang expensive. So that was fine. So we're having a good time and making a plan to go visit my son up in North Phoenix sometime this week. That'll be really nice, because it's been almost 9 months since I've seen him. He's supportive of my journey. He's pretty impressed with what I'm doing. Although he was disappointed that I turned down that job offer, but then I explained to him, I said, look, I've got my reasons. Toxic work environment. I was reading the Reddit forums, a lot of people being sabotaged out of a job. That's not cool. It sounds like hazing, corporate hazing, but in the federal government. I don't want any part of that. So I have my legitimate reasons for turning that down. Now I want to talk about my experience in Latin America. I was in Mexico almost 6 months, almost a month in Belize, and 2 months in Guatemala. Things that surprised me, well, I didn't have too many surprises, honestly. I'll talk about safety. I had zero safety concerns when I was away. Never was a victim of crime, never walked down the wrong alleyway or street or anything like that. Never had any moments where I thought, okay, I'm in danger, I need to get out of here. Not once, not a single time. Here in the United States, I worry about roving bands of ICE agents accosting people, taking them out of their cars, whisking them away like it's Jason Bourne. Yeah, that's nobody needs that. I mentioned sticker shock here in the US. Food and lodging and healthcare are a lot more affordable abroad here than they are here in the US. Another thing that's weird, when I was coming back to the US, LAX was my first stop. And after I had cleared through immigration and customs, I went and got lunch. And the first thing I noticed, yeah, sales tax is not included. So you have the price of the thing you're buying, in this case, lunch. You have to pay sales tax on top of that and the tip, like an 18 or a 20% tip on top of the already inflated price that you're paying. So yeah, that's another thing you have to cope with in this country. High cost of goods, and then sales tax and tips on top of that. Whereas in Mexico, the sales tax is already included in the price of what you're buying. And then you just include a 10 or 15% tip on top if that's applicable to the situation. And in Guatemala, same deal. Sales tax is already included in the price, and they include a 10% gratuity automatically if you're at a restaurant. So it's much more transparent and user-friendly shopping abroad than in the United States. Same goes for healthcare. I remember getting medical services in Mexico, and once in Belize and once in Guatemala. In Mexico, I've had a number of procedures done, and it's You pay once. You pay the price they tell you to pay, and you can pay with cash or debit card. Simple and easy. There's no co-pays to deal with, no co-insurance, no health insurance hassles. I just paid out of pocket. So that was really nice. Well, advice. So if you're an empty nest single parent in the United States like I am, and you feel ready or almost ready to move abroad, I say go for it, because you only live once. You can always come back to the States if it doesn't work out for you, as long as you keep your US citizenship, that is. Now, if you're worried about feeling lonely, don't, because socializing in Mexico is much easier. You have meetup groups, there's groups on WhatsApp, there's internations.org, I think. Lots of ways to join groups and make new friends that way. People seem to be a bit less reserved abroad and more outgoing than they are in the States. That's just my experience. I remember joining an English-speaking business networking group that met at the same bar every Wednesday night. So that was a great way to get familiar with people and be known. So that was great. And you don't need to be a business owner to join groups, obviously. Just go on meetup.com, Facebook groups. Yeah, don't let your fears of loneliness or worries about fitting in, don't let that stop you, because there's ways of doing that. And you'll meet other expats and immigrants who are a lot like you in the same situation that you are. But probably the biggest lesson I learned in this whole thing in the past 8.5 months is that there are no, as I said, there are no guarantees. If I had to do it all over again, I would have researched potential employers in Mexico while I was still in Tucson. I would have gone to their websites or sent them an email asking them, hey, I'm moving to Mexico to pursue TEFL teaching. Do you offer visa sponsorship for foreign teacher applicants? I don't have residency in Mexico, that's why I'm asking. And I would have emailed enough schools to get enough data to make a more informed decision, because I found that out the hard way. I assumed that, okay, I've got the teaching certificates, so I'm good to go, right? Nope, not true. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. But still, I have no regrets. It was a wonderful time. I was abroad for 263 days. That's pretty astounding when you look at it, especially in the summer of 2024 when I went to school. That was a 72-day experience abroad. 72 days, that's hardly anything compared to 263. So I learned a lot of skills, moving from one country to the next, dealing with international banking, dealing with vetting and hiring legal vendors from abroad to process my teaching paperwork, banking issues. I had to go to the US Embassy to notarize a letter to send to Charles Schwab to get my account access restored after they locked me out. I came close to having, I actually did have a few meltdowns while I was abroad, but I was able to fix my problem and solve my problem. My AI agents made it all possible. ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, and a couple others. Yeah, I think I will wrap up this video. I had a great experience, and I'm thankful for the little community I'm building here on YouTube. I appreciate each and every one of you who is watching my stuff. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. This is the Spend Channel, single parent, empty nester, digital nomad. My name is Jason. I'm from Arizona. And in 3 weeks from now, I'll be on my way to Vietnam to build a new life there. So if you have any comments or questions, put them down below. Also, I have my website in the description of this video. I offer a free relocation checklist. It's an 8-point checklist for people who want to move abroad, but they're not sure on where to start. It's free. All you got to do is go visit my site, and you can download it for free. And so, thank you again for watching all the way to the end. I appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.